This is the story of the longest rage typing I have ever seen on iRacing. Now I'm going to show the entire race for full context and so that you can see that this race was ultimately destroyed by myself. It comes down to a mistake I made, but this is coming off of the back of a different race, which we'll get into later. So we're starting in P2, and we're following Bernardo Feria, who's this car ahead, skipping ahead to lap 4, and I'm going to skip around on this race quite a lot because, I mean, mainly the bulk of what I'm going to talk about all happens in one lap. We lose P2 to Ryan Sharpless, who's in the Dirk Shootin' livery, almost get rear-ended by car number 9, who ultimately ends up driving off and straight into the wall, turning left while the rest of us turn right. Skipping ahead to lap number 6 of 25 laps, so we have a long way to go. Looking up the inside of Ryan to take P2 back, and we were kind of just swapping positions back and forth. Didn't want to attack Bernardo, who's the lead car, yet. It's a very long race, 25 laps. We're not going to stay in this fight for that long. Coming around the final corner of lap 6, I just completely spin myself around, take a little bit of a hit from Ryan, which does give us wheel damage, but I mean, that was completely on me. I over-rotated the car, got on throttle too early while still maintaining that steering. It could have been much worse for us. We fall down to P11, but this is not the end of the downfall of our race, because it felt like we were going to move forward relatively quickly, but that was not to be the case. On the straight, lap 8, Alan Bockley, car number 20, is looking like he may lose this position to Hamish going around the outside in that orange car, and space opens up on the inside for me. I try and make use of it. It's very difficult to get it done around the inside like that if somebody holds it around the outside, as well as Hamish has here, into the penultimate corner, and the inside will basically give you that position every single time. I almost lose my car on top of that, so I settle behind him, brake early, and say, you know what, let's have a go, another lap. That one didn't work out for us. Lap number 9, and we are, as a group, beginning to fall pretty far off of that group ahead, and it seems like this might be as far forward as we can really find ourselves, would be P9. If we don't get around these guys soon. Hamish tries the same move, goes a lot deeper this time, isn't able to hold it as tight, takes out some cones, and we go through on the inside. Now up into P10 and against Alan Bockley, who, apart from the race directly before this one, I have never really had a problem with, and we'll dive into that some more later. He gets a really bad run through the penultimate corner, holds it super tight on the final corner, and I just back off completely, initially looking for a switchback, but opted to try and just get him on the straight because we were already losing a lot of time fighting on the infield like that, if you could even consider that the infield of this type of track. Now, Alan gets a pretty poor run around the first corner. We're going to be right on his tail, actually too close. We're trying to lift, but it's a difficult situation because we do have Hamish right on our tail at the same time. I'm trying to use this overspeed to the best of my advantage, but I totally botched that as I just kind of touched Alan's bumper, pulling out, which killed my run. Hamish comes through, flying, looking up the inside of both of us, was almost going to make that 3 wide, doesn't quite do it, opts to try and tuck behind Alan. I'm going to leave him space on the inside, try and go around the outside if possible, but it doesn't quite work out for me. He pulls all of the way ahead, and I know that this fight could last forever unless I expedite things. So up the inside of the penultimate corner, if nothing else to try and throw Hamish offline, I end up finding space on the outside for the final corner, which does allow you to carry enough speed through here because you can open up your steering, get on throttle a little bit earlier, and, well, you ultimately get a better run. Really useful if this was the final lap, as we just had a nose ahead, but it's not quite, and instead we now find ourselves on the outside for the first corner, which isn't a fantastic place to be. You have a lot less distance to travel on the inside, especially on this first part of the S's. So I decided to lift, tuck in behind him, and we were beginning to lose Alan. I didn't want that to happen, but what that did mean is that my overspeed relative to Hamish's is going to be much stronger, as I have so much slip from Hamish, and he was pretty far away from Alan, 8/10. So up the inside we go. He doesn't really try and defend that, actually gets on his brakes early and allows us to go through back into P10. So we chase Alan down. Lap number 12, we're beginning to catch him about half of a second away. This is a really good spacing to have right before you go up this hill. That slipstream is pulling you all the way up this hill, and then that extremely long straight. It's a pretty cut and dry move, inside, outside. You can make it work either way. It looks like Alan is going to hold the inside. I'm going all of the way to the outside. I expected Alan to follow me because I pulled over there immediately, but he didn't. He stayed completely on the inside. And I want to take a moment to talk over a couple of interesting points about this particular situation. I have opened up the corner very early and stayed completely wide, allowing him space directly to my right for him to open up the corner for himself, thus giving both of us the best opportunity to come as close to the racing line as possible and carry as much speed as possible through this corner. It also makes it much less likely that you guys are going to have any major contact through the corner, as your lines will be more similar and kind of parallel to each other. When you are this far apart, there's a high likelihood that your lines are going to intersect at some point, probably from the car on the inside going deep into the corner. Otherwise, he's going to have to way over slow, and the car on the outside should basically get the position for free. And nobody likes to give a position for free, so that is why you often see this situation lead to the car on the outside committing a switchback on the inside car who's gone deep. Or you see contact as the car on the outside tries to go around the outside, but the car on the inside is carrying too much speed with not a wide enough entry, so it creates a very narrow exit and fires them off of an early apex into the car on the outside. Now, there are also benefits of what Alan is doing here. If there was a car directly behind, this is a good way to avoid a dive into the corner. Or if he's kind of in the mind of the car on the outside, this can scare the car on the outside into thinking that he's going to go deep into the corner, all when he just holds it tight, and it basically disallows the car on the outside going around the outside for fear of contact. I think those are the benefits of holding a super tight line like this and not opening up the corner whatsoever when you have somebody on the outside. However, I think it is 95, 96, 99% of the time a much better option as the inside car to get as close to the outside car as you can. Obviously, you don't want to make contact, but just get alongside them. It allows the easiest line for both cars. It's more predictable, and you have a better chance of keeping your position as that inside car. Now, this changes drastically based on the type of corner you're going into, the speed, the corner after the corner you're going into, a lot of stuff. But that's enough for now. Let's continue. So around the corner we go. We have the outside. We carry much more speed in on entry as we have that wider line and can travel a further distance without risking contact of anybody on the outside. We actually give him a lot of space through there, all of the way through, as does he to us. Now, heading into the penultimate corner, we have the inside line, and you'll actually see me stay very close to him on the outside so that I basically have the racing line. I'm just a car's width away from that outside line, so it's pretty similar to the racing line, and I can carry a lot of speed through there. Now, lap number 13, he has the slip. I have no slip, and it's basically the exact same situation from last lap, except reversed. He's going to pull it to the outside. I know that my best chance of defending this is getting as close to him as I can. And at this point, I look out my window. There's a control you can set to look left and look right. I look out of my window. I see that there's quite a bit of space between us, and I even take up a little bit more to get a bit closer just to maximize my chances of keeping this position. So we brake a little bit late into the corner to try and get our nose ahead and stay as close to the inside as we can. I guess we didn't stay close enough, though. We'll ride on board with him as, I mean, it's pretty much our normal line, but he just drives directly through the back of us and puts us into a spin backwards at the end of that corner. I felt I had been respectful with my racing with him, and even in the moment, I knew, that had never really happened to me before, where somebody just drove into the back of me at that corner. I was fairly upset about it, and this didn't help. This was really no one's fault. Lap number 17, going around the outside of car number 13, who is holding a pretty narrow line in here, so I felt like I would be able to go around the outside fairly cleanly. It's a pretty cut and dry move around the outside, especially when you're that far ahead. However, really unfortunate netcode contact as we go through there, and I already had wheel damage. It was pretty hard to catch that one, and into the wall. Off of the track we go with damage that puts us in the pits. I messaged Alan, and I said, second race in a row with you that you kill me. Crazy. And it led to this. Now, I typically never message people in a race. I feel like I'm pretty good about staying level-headed, keeping to myself, and just leaving the race. Rip that dude into the wall. We're in P22. It's lap 1. Up the inside, make that P21. onto the straight on the second lap. Guy hits the wall. Guy gets scared, basically drives into the other wall. We go through up into P18 now, and we are making up positions pretty quickly. On board with Kyle, who decides to do a sick four-wheel jump into the wall. However, it's pretty suboptimal. It is going to end up kind of helping us as he rejoins the track through the final corner, and we have all of these cars ahead of us. They kind of have to slow down to just take caution of Kyle, who's driving into the pits, and we find ourselves looking up the inside, and we will get the move done on the Red Bull car directly to our left in turn 1 and follow through Elliot Piper, who is that Ferrari car ahead of us, with quite a bit of damage. Now, Elliot is locked into a battle with Jose here for P14, making our way up the grid pretty quickly. Tried to look for space on the inside, didn't open, got on the brakes early and lifted. We did make contact, but I mean, it was an optimistic move. I realized once that wasn't happening that I had to back out of that, and I'm happy that no one died. Following behind Jose now, we did get around Elliot, who kind of got stuck on the outside through there, and we're looking for a move into turn 1. Jose initially looks like he's going to defend, but does not follow me when I go all of the way to the inside, so we slide through side by side through turn number 1 and tuck ahead of him before we get up into the S's, and look at the group ahead of us. Tailed by a Harley Quinn car. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, make that 6, never mind. I think it was 7, now it's 6 as that guy drives into the wall, and we find ourselves in P13, making headway super fast. Lap number 5, right behind the Harley Quinn car, and he just kind of leaves space open on the inside. We were right on his tail, we had the momentum, he gives that one up. Lap number 6, and we're now facing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars all within the next second and a half. Really poor run for the car ahead of me. I look up the inside going up the S's, and we actually go 2 by 2, and then they're right behind and in front of each other at the front, almost making contact with car number 24 at that second apex of the S's, and then almost with the wall. Very, very close call there, but we get the position done up into P11, following behind Augustin, who's on the inside ahead of us. Tyler is on the outside though, and he is about to have a bit of a struggle. Goes very wide there, takes the off track, but holds it on the inside, which does give him the advantage into the penultimate corner where we are heading. I realize that, and I actually brake pretty early and pretty hard here to try and go underneath him, let him go ahead, but a lot of stuff is going to happen. 2 cars go super wide to the right, and I was trying to allow enough space for 14 to rejoin the track, but not to get all of the way to the outside so that I could open the track up for myself and gain an advantage around that final corner, but it didn't get that far as car number 17 joins at a 45-degree angle directly back onto the track. And yes, this is Alan Bockley. It's the same guy from that last race. It causes complete mayhem. By the time I spin my car around, it's like a fucking war zone. And as I rejoin, some more shit's gonna go down. Contact between these two sends one into the wall, one off to the left, another one behind makes contact with the same car. By some miracle, we survived, but this had me scratching my head. Like, he carried so much speed in at such an intense angle of a rejoin with so many cars already occupying that space. It just absolutely boggled my mind that somebody could do that. And then going up the hill, he almost murders us as he's attempting to drive a completely destroyed car around the track, and he leaves. Now, I didn't message him anything here. I left, I went into the next race, and that is where we currently are. Now I'm going to play the accident back, and I do think that I probably didn't need to message him. I'm not going to say exactly that I was overreacting, because I do think that this was a stupid move from him, but I just didn't realize that I was going to open Pandora's box by messaging him. So let's get into it. I send him this message, and it begins. Prepare yourself. Second race in a row with you that you kill me. Crazy. Bernardo Feria is talking about coaching. I say, don't think there is space for that one. Elliot Piper, are you 12, Nathan? Talking to somebody else. Alan, maybe don't squeeze me before Aiden, and I would be less elbow out, which he says in all chat, which is important. I say, when? He says, just before. I say, wait, you're saying I squeezed you on the straight. He says, you literally pushed me almost off the track as I left you the inside. And then somebody says, love your content, Aiden. I say, thank you. And then Elliot apologizes for the spin, and I say, all good, huge netcode. Anyway, between me and Alan says at lap number 13, I said, lap number 13, you have like a meter on both sides. Now he's referencing the entry to the corner where he ends up killing me, claiming that I was 2 elbows out with this. Now, once I realized what he was talking about, I was kind of just in disbelief. He says, I leave you all the space in the world and you focus on squeezing me. I was a bit confused at this because I mean, I was just opening up the corner for myself. We didn't make contact. So I ask for another opinion. I say, Alan is messaging me saying I squeezed him too much on lap 13. Does anyone else want to have a look at this? Alan says, you want to ask for witnesses? You have all the space in the world. Elliot says, what lap? Ryan says, Bockley, that's not a gap you can go into, dude, as Ryan already knows what the incident is and is already looking at it. Ryan says, there's no gap for you there. Bernardo says, your fault, Alan. Now, before we go any further, I want to say that I didn't want to gang up on Alan with a bunch of people, and from this point on, I'm actually going to be skipping a lot of people's messages because there were people just rage baiting him. But iRacing is a place where after races, if there is something controversial, I do like to talk with multiple people over it, give different perspectives, and hopefully learn something, maybe teach something, or maybe just agree that, you know, racing happens. But yeah, this unfolded in a way that I didn't want it to. I am almost in the grass, says Alan. I said, yeah, I don't see where I almost drove you off track. And then Alan says, and you almost bumped me. Ryan says, actually, I'm not reading Ryan's messages. Alan says, too focused on squeezing me. I say, you have so much space. I didn't drive you off. Alan says, then you go wide. I take the inside. You try to close too late. And at this point, I realized that he just decided he was going to drive through me because he felt that he had been wronged on entry. So I say, alrighty then. And Alan says, next time focus on your inside instead of squeezing me out. Thomas chimes in and says, rather optimistic gap, I'd say, which I would agree with. Alan then says, that would have left no space to me inside. And I said, have you never raced before, Alan? Because it seems like he wanted to go through, just regardless, like he wanted me to move out of the way. Bernardo says, shut up, Alan, that's not a squeeze, dude. Oh, skipping these. Okay, Bernardo says, that is not a gap you go for. And Alan says, yes, it is. I then say, I left you plenty of room on entry. Alan says, don't call for elbows out if you don't want elbows out. No, Aiden. I say, that was not elbows out. There wasn't even contact. Alan says, I left you plenty of room. I left you the entire track to overtake me. Inside, you still had to squeeze me. And I said, yes, you left me the space right next to you. That's part of the track. That's part of what you left me to overtake. Like, why would I not use that? Alan says, you should have focused on the inside. And then I say, why would I hold the inside and fuck up my corner? Now at this point, Ryan and Bernardo are chiming in a little bit, and they say the lion. I say Daddy Bernardo. Probably not a good thing to say to somebody who's pretty upset, as at this point I had kind of lost it. I accepted that this was not going to go anywhere. Thomas says, Alan, even if he's drifting slightly wide, you must understand he will turn in. And Alan says, I don't care about a YouTube celebrity. The replay is pretty clear, which kind of sucks to have that type of response, because I do like to have these conversations after races, and but I also understand that he is feeling ganged up on here, which was not my intention. I didn't know everybody was going to jump on this the way that they did. Now Alan says, you did not have to go to the left like you did, which he is right about. I didn't have to, but it's just stupid not to do that and hurt my own run through that corner. Overall, like, I'm trying to go around the track as fast as possible. There were a few more good nuggets in here. It kind of turned into like a bunch of random rambling, but eventually he said, no one will acknowledge he went super wide to squeeze me again. Don't go elbow out if you don't want elbow out. You could have done it clean with space. You could have done it clean with space. And I say, I gave you space. And I don't think he was really having a conversation at this point. He was just saying what happened, and in his mind, what went wrong, which I honestly think is delusional. Like, as I'm reading this back, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but that is just such a common move that it blew my mind. I almost don't believe that he's being serious here and that he's just, I mean, I even say, Alan, on a serious note, it's a common tactic to take up more of, and then some messages go through, and then I say the track when you were on the inside. He then gets upset that I made this public and that people are messaging. I mean, this looks like a forums chat, but honestly, he was the first one to message in all chat. I wasn't messaging in all chat, but he said that, and I figured people probably knew what the accident was. Ryan was already looking at it, so we were also talking on voice chat at the same time, or I was talking on voice chat and he was responding in text. So it was, I don't know. He says, I was super fair play. I opened the door. You had to play tough. Well, okay. And I just could not believe that it went on. Like, why is it still going? Eventually, it's just him talking to himself. Over the course of like 5 minutes, like, everybody just stopped talking and he just talked to himself. If you want to read any of it, go back and read it. I just need to get this off my chest.